Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Adventures in Careerland. Hello, everyone. Glad to be back. I'm your host, Adriano Magnifico. I'm a career development facilitator in the Louis Riel School Division, and we're broadcasting from the Louis Riel Arts and Technology Center and their esteemed and powerful and incredible broadcast media program. And I'm joined in this program, which is one of the 13 programs in the Louis Riel Arts and Tech Center, where students come because they want a little extra juice. They want a little extra energy. They want a little extra insight into who they are, what their skills are, what they're capable of, and how they can climb those mountains and find their best selves. What do you think of that?
That was an introduction.
Okay. And of course, I'm joined.
Giving us some wisdom.
Yeah.
The wisdom, yeah. They're always climbing to the mountain, and I always have a little nugget for them. And these two esteemed people, CJ, they, them, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Tim Hortons delivered
Very late.
the package late. So your coffee is what? Ice cold right now?
Well, it's iced coffee, so yeah, that's how it's supposed to be.
So it actually worked out very well.
It did, yeah, but I ordered it at like 8:30, hoping it would be here before class started, and it just got here as class started, which I'm kind of upset about because I wanted to eat it before, but no, it's just sitting on my desk.
Well, that's one of the perils. I've invited you to bring it here, even though it's a little greasy, and that's the
And
best
then
part
get
of
it all over the equipment. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Well, I do it every day. It's a beautiful thing. And we also have Andre Boisjoli,
Yeah.
who's working the original Star Trek keyboard
Yeah.
with the little bright buttons,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And Andre, how are you today?
I'm doing good. But last night, I was tired yesterday. Better today because I slept a lot. But
I saw you yawning a bunch yesterday.
Oh, I know. It was bad. Well, it's because I'd worked this weekend and I was really tired. Anyways, all that to say, I went to bed around 4:30 when I got home. Like right when I got home, I slept on the couch, and I woke up around, I would say 8. Yeah, around 8. And I thought it was the morning. I thought I'd slept for a good 6 hours or even 7. I was like, oh, okay, I'm ready to go to school. But it was, it was 8 p.m., not a.m. So it took me a bit of time to realize that.
How long did you like get your bag and everything, and then you're
No,
like, oh wait.
I just
Brushed his teeth.
Yeah. I went to my room to check my clock, and it doesn't have like the AM or PM indicator on it. So I was kind of lost for a few seconds.
Well, for the extra $4 or $5, you could have gotten that little
yeah,
indicator.
and then I texted my friends. They probably
That's
thought I was crazy.
You know what? This is
I said, what day is it today?
I hate to say it, Andre. This is a typical Gen Z response. Okay? If I hear another line from you guys, how you doing? I'm so tired. Oh my God.
That is the catchphrase of our generation.
I think so. I saw that.
But that's a way everyone can relate to each other because we're all really tired.
Yeah,
well,
but I'm not.
Gen Z is a zombie-like land.
Yes.
I'm not
where
proud
everyone
of it.
goes. They sleep indiscriminately. They wander onto
Exactly.
couches. They try to find messages that show them what day it is or what time it is.
Your friends probably thought
who
you
they
were
are.
crazy, Andre,
Oh,
asking
yes.
what day
Yeah.
it is.
Do you even
totally.
remember your middle name right now?
Yeah,
or
David.
David.
I think. No,
Isn't it David? David. En français. Anyway.
David. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it was pretty windy this morning. Would you guys go outside?
Yeah,
Oh,
I did.
Holy smokes. I got up at 4:00 in the night. It was winding. I thought the rain barrel was rolling away. I had to go chase this in the night in the
I
in
heard
the
that
pouring
it like
rain.
portal night long.
It was crazy. It was
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
And of course, I wandered in here and holy smokes, my comb over kind of popped right up. I felt like I had a mohawk. It was bad. How is it out? Now you're out in the boonies, out in St. Adolphe.
I'm out in St. Adolphe.
What's the wind like on the windswept Canadian prairie?
There's waves on the river now.
Oh
So-
yeah, I heard.
Yeah.
I don't remember where it was, but they said somewhere that had a lot of water. Like the water can rise up to 5 feet today because the
So are
waves
you
are going to
getting
be
worried there,
gigantic.
Andre?
No. I think I know. I mentioned this in our last episode. No, I'm not very worried.
What, are you getting more worried?
we're
All it
beh-
does is
No,
rain.
I know, but we're behind the dike, so we should be fine. But this morning when I got up,
Yeah, whatever.
I heard the only thing I could hear was like the town pump running, right? Because
Oh,
the
yeah, he
water
was
can't get out of
complaining.
the culverts because it's blocked by the river. So they closed it. So they have to get a pump to pump out the water out of town. So that's
Well,
the only thing I could hear. The loud sound of the town pump going. It was
Well, you know what? They don't
wasn't
have
too
those kind of
pleasant.
problems in Vancouver. I don't
Yeah.
think. I don't think.
Well, it rains over there, but
Well, yeah, but
Oh,
it,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
but,
where it rains a
but
ton.
it runs off into the ocean. I think.
Yeah.
I think that's. I don't
Yeah.
know. But anyway, I think today we've got a tour de force.
Oh,
We
not a
do.
humdinger.
It's a humdinger of a program today because we've got a guest that I met a few years back when he was doing some really creative work with a marketing company, and he has since moved on to become a resident as a doctor. So this is an odd story. So his story is going to be really cool. And I'm talking about Joel Voth. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're super excited to have you. I mean, we have a real doctor. I think there's reverence here. And we watch all the doctor shows.
Mhm.
All excited.
Do
I
you-
watch ER. I watch The Resident. I watch these shows.
do
So
you?
now,
Oh, my favorite doctor show is House MD.
oh yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I don't
So
watch
Joel,
was
do you
a
have the
big
house
fan.
attitude a bit, or
I was always a very big fan of House long before I ever even thought about going into medicine. So I appreciate that. I treat people a little bit kinder, I feel, than Dr. House did. But yeah, I loved the show.
yeah, it was great. Anyway, Joel, this is an amazing thing. Like I find your story really interesting because you're a Winnipegger, born and raised Winnipegger, and of course Winnipeg has lost you. Are you lost for good? Are you ever coming back to Winnipeg? Or are you one of our lost children again?
You never say never. Winnipeg will always have a piece of my heart, but for the foreseeable future, I will be based out of Toronto for the next little while.
Right on. So you are in a program in Toronto. You want to talk about that program very quickly, what you're in and why you're in Vancouver?
Yeah, sure. So I'm finishing my residency training in family medicine. It's a 2-year program based out of the University of Toronto at St. Michael's Hospital. And right now I'm actually on elective working at St. Paul's Hospital in Vancouver, working with their addictions team, kind of working towards my July 1st start of my fellowship training. So I'm doing an extra year of specialized training in addictions medicine before I go back out into the world and start my real job.
Well, that's amazing. Now, didn't Toronto offer that? You chose Vancouver. What attracts you to Vancouver? There must be a couple of addictions in Toronto is what I'm saying.
There are. So I'm actually doing the Toronto program next year.
Okay.
Vancouver's program is probably one of the best in North America, if not much of the world. And so I had the opportunity to come out here and learn from their team for a month and jumped on that so that I could kind of add some skills from out here to my training in Toronto.
So now tell people what a resident is. Because I watch the television program. I love it. And I know it inside out, okay? So I know what a real
I'm
resident
thinking
does
of like a
because I watch
resident of a
TV.
house.
No. What's a resident?
So the
Joe.
process to go through your medical training is you start in medical school, you're a med student, and then you go through the usually 4 years. The program I went to at McMaster in Hamilton is condensed into 3 years. And then as soon as you graduate from medical school, you're a doctor. So that's when you get to start using the doctor title. However, at the end of your medical school training, you match into a specialized training program, which is your residency. And that can be anything from general practice in family medicine, like I'm doing, or general surgery. You can do psychiatry. There are tens and tens of different specialized training programs that you can do. And so once you match into one of those programs, that's when you kind of specialize your learning and skills for the type of work that you're going to do in your final career.
So
then go ahead.
Yeah, so you talk about all these niches and stuff. Is there any niche that you have an interest in or you found that you like the most?
Yeah, so I really liked family medicine because of the kind of breadth that we get to do. We get to treat people from the instant they're born until the end of their life. And so I
Yeah.
think that there's something very interesting about that. And you get to learn about a little bit about everything, kind of. And then just recognize when you don't know enough about it and need to refer to the specialist who's spent 5 years training on that one thing. So that's really fun. And then within that, I've kind of found addictions medicine as an area of personal interest that I really appreciate the science behind it, and also getting to work with marginalized populations, which is something that I'm pretty passionate about. So I'm excited to do an extra year of training in addictions.
Well, that's awesome. And we have a few of those in Winnipeg, so I'm just assuming you're going to come back. I don't want to put any pressure on you, okay?
He's pretty major pressure on
I
you.
just hate to lose our
Yeah.
best people. That's all it is, right?
No
That's
one
all it is.
likes
You and my-
Winnipeg, though.
Oh, be quiet. Winnipeg's a great place. Anyway,
I
no,
loved Winnipeg. I'm Winnipeg's biggest cheerleader out in Toronto, so don't worry. I'm singing Winnipeg's praises always.
right on, right on. So let me tell you, you're starting in Daniel McIntyre, graduate 2005. You're sitting in class and you're thinking about, what should I do in my life? What is your life at Daniel McIntyre like? I'm thinking, like, we've gone so far forward to resident. We want to go back now and say, what were the seeds that were dropped in you to think this might even be a glint in your eye?
Well, truly, medicine was not something that I had ever considered. In high school, I really liked the sciences. And so at the time, because I really liked chemistry, I thought, oh, maybe I'll go into pharmacy. I actually had the opportunity in grade 12 to do an internship at a pharmacy and hated it. But still kind of thought, well, maybe I'll see if this works better when I get into university.
But it didn't work, right? Like, that's where, how important was that? You did an internship, or in I guess in a Daniel Mac program, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what was
so
it, a job shadow? Was it a long internship? And what did you notice and not like about it?
So I found it was a kind of longitudinal job shadow over a semester, where I'd go in and work with a pharmacist and kind of just shadow them around, do some of the tasks that they would do. I found that it didn't have at least the role I was doing, didn't have the same interpersonal connection that I was looking for. You didn't get to be the one talking about why the person was on these medications. You just kind of like gave them to them with instructions on how to take them appropriately, which wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be. And you also didn't really get to use a lot of the chemistry skills that you had honed in high school and through university, I felt.
Do you not need
really...
chemistry skills to like mix the medicine and everything?
Yeah, I think there are some skills there, and there's a lot of background knowledge that you need, obviously. Like, don't get me wrong, pharmacists are exceptionally well trained and know way more about medicine than even I do as a physician. So don't get me wrong. It just didn't have the same kind of excitement that I was looking for, I think.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And as a result, I kind of found something in university that excited me a bit more, and that was actually business.
So how crazy is that? You start going from, were you actually thinking, can I do pharmacy and business? Or were you beginning to try to connect some dots? Or you just thought, and how did you connect to business while you were at university? And you were at the University of Winnipeg, correct?
Yeah, I went to the University of Winnipeg for my undergrad.
Right.
It was actually, there was a moment where I was studying for one of my chemistry finals in first year university. And I was just sitting there being like, why am I doing this? I think I hate this. I need to get out. Did you run out of there mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore? And scream and run through the streets, flailing your arms? It wasn't quite as dramatic as that.
Darn.
But I wish it was kind of that Hollywood moment. But at the time, I was working in retail as a manager at Polo Park, and I really liked the business aspect of what I was doing. I was really interested in marketing. I always found that I was like drawn to reading magazines and watching fashion shows and like reading through ads when I was driving down the street on the billboards. And there was just kind of this moment where I was like, well, maybe this is actually what I should be doing. And so I switched from science into business, and I did my undergrad in marketing and human resources.
Well, you're saying something really important about trying things out. And that's what students don't do in school. Is that fair to say? Most kids are going through an academic program. They choose something, some academic pursuit, and then they go into it and research shows that it often changes. They need the experience, the hands-on to check it out. You were trying out a few things. Was that super
Absolutely.
beneficial to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was the reason that I ended up, originally in a career that I really loved. I tried out science. I did an internship. I worked. I got some experience. I talked to people in my family about what they were doing and saw pieces of things I liked or didn't like in what they were doing. And so I tried to get as much exposure as possible, and always knew that, like, I feel like sometimes people go into a university program or a college program and they get accepted and they've worked really hard to get there. And then even if they don't like it, they sometimes feel trapped in that program. Like, oh, I have to finish this.
And I think
But
that's a bigger reason because like you have to pay so much to take programs in university and college and everything. So you can't,
yeah,
you don't have enough room to try things because if you try something and it doesn't work out, then you have a lot to pay back, even though you didn't want to do that career or that path that you took.
100%. And I think that that's part of the joys of first year university or first year college, where they've kind of built in this year where you can try a bunch of things out, because to graduate with a degree or a diploma or anything, you need to have a certain number of courses in different things. So you need to have an English course, you need to have a math course, you need to have a science course. And so you do kind of have the opportunity to test a few things out before you really commit. And then even once you commit, like I did, you can always switch.
That's right.
It sometimes has a financial downside to doing that. But I think I was kind of always raised to believe that, like, school will always be there. You can always go back and learn more. You're never going to know everything. So don't feel like you have to make a decision and stick to it forever and ever.
Hey, that's a great philosophy. And that came from your mom and dad, right? Like we talked a bit yesterday and you said you didn't feel the pressure from parents to choose
Yeah.
and to move, where a lot of kids feel that pressure. And I've run into so many kids who have gone off to get a degree based on other people's needs instead of their own sense of who they are and what matters to them and where the right fit is. And then they wind up not using that degree. Like Canada's got an incredible collection of underemployed people. You know what I'm saying? They have degrees in a lot of different areas, but they're doing jobs that have nothing to do with their degree.
Yeah.
And that hurts. That hurts an economy because education and the job force should be inextricably linked and tied to
Absolutely.
productivity, possibility, right? So your parent, how important, and you had a sister, you mentioned a sister who was a doctor. So you're watching that as well. So talk about how that works. You must have been, like in terms of mentorship and such, parents are giving you the opportunity. They're stressing education, right? But they're saying it's not the be all end all to pick and choose and decide at any given moment. You have to kind of feel that out. And how about sister?
Yeah.
Talk about that a bit.
So I think that you're right. My parents were exceptionally supportive and basically said, like, your job is to go to school and learn as much as you can in high school, and then do something after that that's going to be educational. But like, no pressure to pick one thing or the other, no pressure to do it full time. Like I did my undergrad in 5 years instead of 4 because I took a few less courses so I could work a little bit more, just because I really liked working.
And there were some beer bashes at the UW, say it.
Well, of course. There's always a little bit of fun as well. It wasn't all work.
It wasn't all work. I've been to these universities. I know what's going on, all right?
Yeah. I ended up graduating and luckily getting a job in a career working for an advertising firm, marketing and communications firm in Winnipeg that I loved. And I stayed there for 7 years. I really loved what I was doing. I got to work with public health. I got to work in education, kind of areas that you don't always think of when you think marketing advertising. And then at the same time, I was watching my sister go through the MD medical program and saw her become a doctor and then start her residency. And when I got to a point in my marketing career where I was kind of looking for a new challenge, I knew I didn't want to go to one of the other firms in Winnipeg because I loved the company that I was working with and had no real qualms there. I just needed something that was going to push me a little bit harder or a different way. And so I kind of thought, I've worked with a lot of health organizations to build strategies to reach new populations or engage with marginalized populations in like the downtown core communities. And I really loved that work. And I thought maybe I could take this health strategy work and translate it into patient care and go into medicine. And I had the benefit of having watched my sister do it. So I knew kind of what the program looked like. And I had someone who was there telling me that she thought I could do it, which was obviously a big push in the right direction.
Well, how important is that to have someone in your corner saying, you can do this, you can do this?
I think having that mentorship is so important, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a sister or a parent,
Yes.
but someone in your life who kind of knows you, knows your skills, and can help direct you in one way or the other. I think that is always super valuable.
So
I've had so many good mentors over my lifetime in school, teachers, family, coworkers, bosses. Like, I've been very lucky that way.
Everybody needs their own little cheerleader.
That's right.
100%.
Oh, that's a great line. There
Yeah.
you go. Way to go,
Make a
CJ.
t-shirt.
Yeah.
Put that on the t-shirt.
Everyone needs a cheerleader. Well, she was
That's
at
going to be the
McMaster.
caption for this episode.
That's going to be the episode. Everyone needs a cheerleader. Now, she was at McMaster and you chose McMaster. Did you check them all out? How did that process go? Or did you just feel like that's the place to go? And why did you choose McMaster? Was it because of cis?
I did check them all out. There's 17 medical schools in Canada. I didn't look overseas or in the States or anything. I knew I wanted to stay in Canada. McMaster's program, like I said before, is condensed from 4 years into 3 years, which means it's a very intense program with very little time off in between. But as someone who was going back to school at the ripe old age of 30, I thought that doing it a little bit quicker was going to be advantageous for me. They also have like a very hands-on learning format for their program and a lot of self-directed learning, which again, as a more mature student, I felt is a better fit for me. There was also the piece that like some of the medical schools had requirements that I didn't have because I hadn't completed a science degree in undergrad. I only had the first year of my science. So that was part of it too, where there were some that were just eliminated because I didn't have the prerequisites. But Mac was the one that was kind of my top choice and the one that I kind of put all my eggs into that basket.
Now, you're 30 going into that. Are you the old guy in the program?
I am definitely one of the older guys in the program.
So they're looking to you for guidance, and you probably have none, and it's quite frustrating. But was that a little odd? Like, what did you see in the young people coming to be doctors? Did you see a difference in the attitudes a bit? Like, you're kind of a millennial, I would say, right? Versus Gen Zs. Did you notice a difference between them or not? They were just some of them.
100%. There was a difference in philosophy there. Well, part of it too was like a lot of the students that I went to med school with had gone into university with the goal of being a doctor. Like they did a 3-year science degree, they got directly into medical school. And so they were in their early 20s and they had known since they were 6 that this is what they wanted to do. I didn't know until my late 20s that this was what I wanted to do. I also didn't have the same background and knowledge that they did. Like they were so leaps and bounds ahead of me in terms of their science knowledge. So there was a big learning curve there when I first got in. But I mean, I've kind of learned over the years that you can teach yourself just about anything if you have the right resources and the right people around you. So that you deal with the learning curve as it comes, and maybe you spend a little bit more time than other people. But also it was interesting because there was a difference. Like there were some people that I was going to school with who were almost 10 years younger than I was. And so we just had different priorities. We were at different stages in our life. And so it was a very interesting mixed bag throughout the whole program, and got to learn a lot about myself and a lot about all the other people in my class.
Well, you also have the more experience, right? So you must have seen some advantage of that sometime when it came to calm or tension or keeping the boat solid when things are a little messy or, and it's overwhelming at times. You probably have a little more savvy. Would you agree? Experience does that for you?
Absolutely. I think that you can keep a little bit more perspective over what's a really big deal versus what is kind of making a mountain out of a molehill type of a situation. You kind of and can self-regulate a little bit more, where you understand your own feelings and how you're feeling in a situation and kind of work through those, because a lot of medicine is very stressful and is very high stakes. We are dealing with people's lives, and so there are moments that are kind of really anxious, and so having a bit of experience and a bit of additional life behind you can definitely be helpful. Not to say that some of the people who were younger in the class weren't also excellent in dealing with all of these situations, but I just had maybe a bit of a different perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I wonder too about what the day looks like when you're a resident working. Are these, are any of your guys coming up and, coming in the morning, the younger guys going, I'm so tired, or, or are they just understanding, hey, we got to get to work. And this is how long is a day? Like, what does a day look like for you?
So a day can be very different because as a medical student and even in early residency, you're doing a lot of different things based on whatever rotation you're learning through. So it can be a full day of clinic, or it can be a full day in the emergency department, or you're doing on-call shifts where you're working 26 hours straight. And so the days are very different based on any rotation. But we were all like, it's a pretty intense program, and there are times that are less exhausting, but there are times where we're all exhausted.
Yeah. Does the physical part ever get to you? Like just thinking, oh my gosh, can I do this? Because that's what some students ask. When I work with some young aspiring medical folks in high school, one of the questions they ask is, can I handle the pace? And I think that's a great question to ask in high school. And you can test it by talking to folks like you, or just thinking about the length of the programs, and maybe kind of do some kind of mild internship without getting in the way. I'm trying to cut this man open. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to get in your way.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And you cut their arm off instead or
right.
something.
Well, that's a mistake. Anyway, oh, sorry. I guess my internship's over. Yes, it is. Is there, what do you think about that?
I think that, so yes, the pace is intense sometimes. It's not always intense. What I've learned over the last 5 years of being a medical trainee is that I think that anyone can do anything temporarily. It's hard to sustain doing a 26-hour shift every 3 days for months and months, but to do it for a couple weeks is doable. And yes, those weeks will be tired, and yes, you might not see your friends as much in those weeks, and you might eat more McDonald's on those weeks instead of cooking dinners, but it's temporary. And if you can keep that in mind, then you can usually make your way through it, because there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, how tough was that with COVID then? You guys were going around the clock, weren't you? Like, there must have been some exhausted people on those floors.
It's been an interesting time to be a doctor for the first time in the middle of a global pandemic. So
absolutely.
Yeah, there was some extra long shifts. There was
like you yourself, like your team was getting sick. So yeah,
absolutely.
So you're losing manpower throughout shifts, and people can't leave, right? Like you can't leave a shift. Isn't there some rule where you have to stay there?
There isn't, actually. If you're sick, you have to leave.
No, but I mean the other guys who think, oh, my shift is over. No, we need you. You have to stay there.
So there's some rules that we actually can't stay after a certain period of time.
Okay.
And usually there's enough coverage and backup coverage booked in, at least at the resident level, that things will operate ongoing, especially because as a resident, you still always have an attending physician that's kind of the boss that's following in behind. And so even if you're not there, there's a staff physician who's there who can step in to take over your responsibilities. But yeah, we were definitely short-staffed at times and working extra hours, and it put an extra difficult spin on an already difficult training program.
Well, for sure. Now I'm thinking about, where did your business background, and you loved the company. It was called Changemakers, and we worked with them. They're a great company, and they did a lot of very creative things in the marketing realm for our division. And what lessons did you take from there, and knowledge did you take from there that you bring to your medical residency? Are there some?
Absolutely. That is a really good question, and not something that I sit down and think about intentionally all the time, but I think it's worth digging into. I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from there is my communication skills. I think so much of medicine is how you communicate with patients and how you ask questions to get the right information that you're looking for so that you can make the right diagnosis. And being a marketer communicator, you really learn how to create a message and how to translate that through different media to your audience. And so it's a different audience and it's a different purpose and the message is different, but those skills are all really transferable between communications and medicine. I think that's the biggest one that comes to mind.
Well, the big and when I worked with the company, the marketing company, getting to figure out exactly what the customer wants, like, or exactly what, in your context now, exactly what the customer's ailment is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's the conversation to get at what I need as a promotional piece and why I want it is a long conversation, isn't it? Like when you take a customer on in a marketing firm, it's kind of like, I just went to see my doctor. I tried to get at the head of the line for something. He didn't like it. Anyway, there's a backlog, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same process. Would you think about just the attention to detail and figuring out the exact diagnostically what the exact customer need is, client need
Absolutely.
is, patient need is?
Yeah, it's sometimes what patients need medically is not what they need emotionally.
Yes.
And so you're sometimes playing with conflicting needs too. It's sometimes easier to figure out what the diagnosis is and prescribe a medication or run a test or something like that. But that isn't always what someone needs from an emotional perspective when they're sitting in front of you. So you do have to take into account the entire human experience. And
Yes.
that is something that's kind of unique. But again,
and that's what a whole marketing piece is, right? You're trying to connect emotionally to somebody and have an impact, right? So,
well, being a doctor is, especially with a patient, is a really, like, especially when you go in a doctor's office, it's a really like a personal thing, right? You talk about personal stuff and stuff like that. So you always need to, keep yourself in check and in tune, right? To not, like, turn off that patient and get them angry or whatever, right?
Well, and you got to be on top. I guess you got to be on top of it too now. With every patient coming in, when I come in, I've already researched the drug he wants to give me. Do you know what I mean? So you're not the keeper of the information, the hermetically sealed information. I'm going to reveal this to you now. Here's the drug you need to take. I've already researched it.
Talking about that, do you ever have patients who come in and they've graduated from the internet school of medicine?
Yeah. People who like Google their symptoms and everything, and they're like, I think I have cancer. And you're like, no, you just have anxiety or something.
Would you say that's like maybe, I mean, access to information is always a good thing, but is it, you could say,
is that more of a pain in the butt, or is it more collaborative and you welcome it?
Yeah.
It can be a double-edged sword.
Yes.
So I think that the fact that everyone has access to more information is just broadly, generally always a good thing.
Yes.
The difficulty is that the quality of the information that you have access to is not always great. And we see this in elections, and we see this in politics, and we see this in the media.
Yes.
And like
the
quality that we aren't really well trained to assess information quality. We're very good at rapidly accessing information and picking the stuff that works best for what we already think and reinforces our biases and all of those cognitive things that are at play. In medicine, people have access to all of this information, but not all of it is quality information. And so that's the part where Dr. Google, as we call it, is not always that helpful, but sometimes it is. I've had patients who have come in with the perfect appropriate diagnosis and knew exactly what they needed, and that is very helpful. But there is still, on our end, we still have to go through the exercise of looking at the symptoms, making a differential diagnosis of what could this be, and ruling out the dangerous things before we kind of land on that obvious diagnosis that Dr. Google might have given you. And that's, I think, the benefit of still having a physician.
So
Otherwise, we'd all just be doing it.
Well, that's one of your skills, though. So you're really enjoying this gig then, aren't you?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
I need to say that I love how you say Dr. Google. That's hilarious.
Dr. Google. Well, or my doctor, Dr. Vinny Boomba. Rodney Dangerfield's doctor. You don't even know who Rodney
No,
is.
I
don't.
All right.
Another reference.
I do.
Yes, you do. Thank you very much.
Another old reference.
Another old reference. That's what these guys say. These little Gen Zers and their little old references from the baby boomer. I don't care what you guys say. You're the cat's meow. Okay.
This is the
All right, I
second
want you to
time you
know
say
that.
this.
I
Is
know,
it or is
I
it
know.
the third? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
He says his catchphrases a lot.
Okay. Anyway,
Need to start
So-
keeping count.
we should. I mean, it might be embarrassing. Anyway, hey, I'm wondering now, Joel, just if you were to come into a class of grade 11 kids at Daniel Mack, what would you tell them about, here's the best way to make your path based on my experience? What cheap advice would you give them? And from you would be excellent advice. Most of the advice I give is pretty cheap. Would you agree? Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. These guys are going, yeah. They're nodding affectionately. Yeah, it's all cheap from you, Magnifico. What great advice do you have, Joel? If you were coming to these kids and you were going to say, here's the one thing I think you ought to think about before you graduate.
Try everything. It's like anything that you are even remotely curious about, do some research into it, look into it, try to find a situation where you can try it, because it's often in those curiosities that you can find your passion. And it's once you find something that you're passionate about, you can translate that passion into a career or interests or artistic endeavors. And it is those passions that will give your life excitement and meaning, I think. And so if you can find those curiosities that you can dig into and become passionate about, you will find a way to build a life around it. And that might be very different than what you think, but I think that's the thing that is going to be fulfilling in a career or a life in any way.
Hey, that's profound. Again, we have to climb to the mountain to get that information. Well done, Joel. Well done. Anyway, hey, it's time for a little feature we do called Quick Cues. So our Crackerjack team here is going to ask you a few questions. Now, don't belabor the thought. Don't get into a discussion. And I say that to my own producing team here, who likes to say, oh, that was what do you think? These are quick hitters. We're going to find out more about you.
Yep.
With some quick cues. So I'm going to turn it over to Andre. Okay, we were salsying here, just so you know, Joel.
You should have muted
As
his
was
mic.
I.
Okay, they wanted
We're
to mute
keeping
my
that.
mic, but they
We're
couldn't.
keeping that.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
Here we go. You ready?
Here we go. Well, welcome to Quick Cues, and well, let's start. Dog or cat person?
Oh, dog.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
No.
Favorite family tradition?
Christmas morning.
Favorite summer activity?
Going to the beach.
Messy or tidy desk?
Tidy.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek.
Starbucks or Tim's?
Starbucks.
Favorite social media?
Instagram.
Texting or phone?
Texting.
Outdoors or indoors?
Indoors.
Cold or warm milk?
Cold. So cold.
Favorite genre of music?
Indie pop.
Toilet paper over or under?
Over. Only over.
Morning or night?
Night personally, morning professionally.
What do you put on toast?
Nothing. Dry toast.
Do you believe in ghosts?
No.
Greatest fear?
Wasps.
What's the last show you binged watched?
ER, oddly enough.
Favorite podcast?
This one now.
Yeah.
Whoa! Everybody's getting that right.
We've had a couple people get it wrong.
We had a couple people get it
We
wrong.
did.
They're going, oh, I like the Pivot podcast. And what are you
Yeah.
talking about? It's Adventures in Career Lad.
I like the Joe
Yeah.
Rogan podcast.
Anyway, I like the Joe Rogan. Yeah, come on. This is Adventures.
I
Anyway,
do have other favorites. but
of
this
course
one
you
now
do.
is
Of
the
course,
king.
but you totally get it now, and how important it was for you to say that. Anyway, hey Joel, this was a lot of fun. Do you have any last parting comments to us or to students about finding your way in this in the odyssey of life?
First, I just want to say thank you for inviting me. It is like very humbling to think that someone is going to be interested in my windy road that it took to get to where I am.
Oh, but we love the
and I'm-
windy road. We love the windy road. And every kid needs to know that everyone has a windy road.
Exactly. It's not just a straight path to your
Yes.
career.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, it is almost never a straight path. So I'm just really excited to be able to share my story, and happy to, if anyone has questions or anything, to please connect us. You have my email. Happy to connect and try to impart any tiny piece of wisdom that I might have.
Oh, wow. That's exceedingly generous of you, sir.
All the wisdom.
And that was, and again, you have been a generous person in my life, helping me out with some of the events in my Tiger's Den, my entrepreneurship event, and now your interest in helping those with addictions. You know, that's part of your DNA, and that's part of the special quality about who you are and what you want to give to the world and what difference you want to make. So, congratulations on your choices and working in something that really brings you joy and purpose. That's really important in anyone's life. So thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the podcast today. We'll see you again on Adventures in Careerland.